This edition of MacVoices is supported by MacVoices magazine, our free Flipboard magazine that brings you some of the best Mac, iPhone, and iPad productivity tips on the web. High in signal, low in noise, just like MacVoices, MacVoices magazine includes information on how you can get more out of your Apple technology. Subscribe at macvoices.com/magazine or search for MacVoices magazine in Flipboard on your iPad or iPhone. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the Talk of the Mac community. I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, we have an old friend back with us who we met at Macworld a while back. He's back with a new version of his software, and I was anxious to talk to him and have him talk to you about it. Mike Piatek-Jimenez of Gaucho Software. Mike, it's good to have you back. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Chuck. It's been a while, but it's good to see you again.
Yeah, it is. And I have to tell you, Mike, when I go to Macworld, or unfortunately now when I went to Macworld, you come home with lots of notes and business cards, and you download a lot of software, and eventually you start, pruning it out. Seasonality Go has been there since you and I met, because it's such a wonderful, it's one of those weather apps that's sort of like a command and control center for weather around me. Even though I can't control it, I always know what's going on, and I really love it.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I'm glad it's sticking with people. I mean, I think I kind of hit a niche there. To have this type of weather app that gives a little bit more advanced data, and does it in a way that lets you customize how you want to see things. And yeah, it's just been a fun project to work on. I haven't quite gotten to the feature of controlling the weather yet, but I have some requests.
Yeah, I bet. You and I talked by email before we did this, and I want to share a conversation I had with one of the local weather personalities at a local TV station a while back, because I noticed that they seem to be giving a lot more attention to weather. And he pointed out to me something that is blatantly obvious, but it never really struck me that way, that weather is something that across the board, it affects everyone, no matter who you are, what you do. Sports, a lot of people are into sports, but not everybody. Politics, the same. Local news, same. But when it comes to weather, everybody's going to be affected. So does that mean that we're all kind of this unintentional closet weather geek?
That could be. I mean, it really does. It's the section of the news that everybody really cares about, and that echoes with conversations I've had with TV news anchors and so forth. That really it is. It's the portion of the news that everybody really pays attention to. I mean, everything else, you can have crazy things happening in the world, and news is often depressing because of that. But if they say it's going to be 70 degrees and sunny tomorrow, everybody's going to smile at that. So,
or frown if the predictions are snow and sleet.
Right.
You spend a lot of time in the meteorological space. Is that just a passion of yours, or is it something you do primarily just for the software?
I started, my formal training was in computer science, and I started doing apps for the Mac. But since then, I kind of got into meteorology. It kind of became my thing. I ended up, my wife is faculty at the university here, and so I can take courses at the university for free. And so I went through and took basically the entire coursework for a meteorology degree as well. And so it's kind of been an interest that's grown over time, and it's been something that I've been able to bring to the app and give it a little bit of an edge compared to others that might not have that background.
So how about Gaucho itself? Is it just primarily weather apps, or do you have other products?
I started out actually. I had this little system monitor called XRG, and actually that's still out there today. It was an open source project I did, and just kind of graphs the CPU memory, disk accesses, and stuff like that on your Mac. And so that's kind of where I started in development. After that, when I started Gaucho Software, it's just been seasonality pretty much the whole time through. I've done some consulting work and contract work for other companies. But my own projects have had seasonality, and it's been the type of app that I've been able to work on for a long period of time. And I've really enjoyed that. So.
Well, let's get to it then. This is a new version of Seasonality Go, and I'll let you outline what's different for us since I've been using the old one for so long and I know how much I enjoy it. What have you given me that's new?
Well, so this is Seasonality Go 3.0, and it is the first version of Seasonality Go that works on the iPhone as well as the iPad. I've had requests for it for a long time, and so I finally found a way. Let's do this, and let's have Seasonality Go run on the iPhone. And so I can walk you through the interface if you'd like.
Yeah, I think so. I guess I want to make clear that the interface for the iPhone is quite a bit different from the iPad. Obviously, the iPad is well, I don't know. Is it fair to say it's more fully featured, or is it just you can only obviously get so much stuff on the screen, and the iPad gives you more options to put things on the screen at once?
Well, so it's all the same data between both versions, and so you can buy it, and either device you use it on, you get the full suite of data. It is displayed in a different way, though. Where the iPad, you can set up several screens and organize weather modules in the way that you want to organize them, resize them. You have screens just for big maps or to show all kinds of graphs or so forth. With the iPhone version, I really didn't see that as an option, and so I kind of had to backpedal a little bit because if I had like a fully customizable screen on the iPhone, it wouldn't show much, you know. So I was just like, let's step back a minute. Maybe customization isn't exactly what's needed, or doesn't have to be the highlight of the iPhone version. Maybe what I have to do instead is say, okay, when I'm using my iPhone, what weather information do I want to see it in, and what order do I want to see it in? And so that was the approach I took. After that, I went back through and said, well, the whole theme of Seasonality Go is customizability, and so I tried to add as much customizability to the iPhone version as I could, but it does have that big difference where the screen is kind of more of a fixed layout than the iPad version.
I would think that producing an iPad version would make this even more popular and would encourage people to check it out if they're not a real weather geek, because I mean, we're all more likely to have our iPhone with us and access it more often than our iPad.
That's right, and I mean that's why I didn't do. I did an iPad version first, mostly because I knew I was focused on more of an advanced weather app. And I knew that the iPad had the screen space to do that. It wasn't, but of course, it was something where I always wanted to have that data on my iPhone as well. And so I just kind of had to go back to the drawing board and kind of before it became evident how to do that. And so I'm happy now to have it there. I've had a lot of customers write in who have used the iPad app for years. Say, hey, this is great. I love having this finally on my iPhone. So
great. Well, how about if we get you to walk us through Seasonality Go on the iPhone?
Sure, sounds good.
All right.
Okay, so this is the home screen on Seasonality Go on the iPhone. At the top, you can see it basically gives you the current conditions. And so you can see temperature, sky conditions. One thing that's a little unique is the cloud profile. It will tell you what the cloud cover is at different elevations, and so you can see that, and that's not available in too many other apps. Down below is astronomical data. So in the middle you have moon phase, and from there the inner ring is the moonrise and moonset, and the outer ring is sunrise and sunset. So the orange bar kind of shows where you are in that time period and gives you an idea of how much daylight or so forth you have left. This is the forecast screen, and you can kind of see it just gives a standard 7-day forecast. But if you want, you can zoom in more and see the hourly data too. And so if you just pinch in, it basically will show you on a 3-hour basis what the temperature is going to be like, winds, probability of precipitation, and cloud cover for that time period. So that's kind of a nice way to do it. It's kind of flexible. You don't really have to think about it. You can go through and change settings specifically, but otherwise, it's really easy to navigate. This is the map screen, and it has the standard radar and satellite view, but it also has surface analysis, and so you can see exactly where fronts are. You can see where low and high pressure centers are. It's really quick to navigate around. The surface analysis is all custom drawn, and so it looks real pretty whether you're zoomed in far or zoomed out far as well. Another thing you can do is you can go in the map settings, and you can view plenty of different options for this view. But one particular thing I like is the particle mode. And so if you enable that, that gives you kind of a bird's eye view of what the wind's doing at any given time, or right now specifically. It's color coded based on the temperature of the air, and so you can kind of scroll all over the world and kind of see what the atmosphere is doing. And it's kind of a nice way to look and say, hey, why is the wind blowing this way, or where's the wind coming from, and look at the larger scale circulations of air. And so that's, I mean, yeah, here looking over the Pacific, San Francisco and stuff, there's a low pressure system off the coast. And it's kind of a nice way to look at things. Now, this last page is the graphs. And from here, you can see that if you want to dive in further, say, hey, this is what's happening at this particular time, and look in the details, the graphs is the way to do that. Seasonality Go offers up to 10 different graphs. And so you can configure each one. You can decide which ones you want to see, but it makes it really easy to navigate the graphs. You can zoom in by pinching and panning around. The other thing is that if you tap and hold on a particular area, you can go through and see exactly what that value is at that time. And so that makes it much easier to kind of explore what's happening right around your time frame. Again, the graphs have kind of a nice settings view as well. And here you can go in and check exactly which graphs you want to see. If you decide you don't want to see the snowfall because you're not in a snowy area but want to see the humidity instead, you can do that. You can reorder the graphs, and so if you want the cloud cover to show up near the top, then you can just tap and drag it up, and then it reorganizes it for you. And this is kind of what I was referring to with adding the customizability. The other thing you can do is you can open up the settings and actually, or no, this here is a location saying that, hey, these are the app or locations you want to look at. And it's really easy to switch different locations. You can also share the screens with your friends on Twitter, mail, or email to somebody. You can post on Facebook, so forth. Here's the app settings. And the other thing with app settings is that I've made it customizable is you obviously have all the units displays, but I go beyond just the standard. Do you want standard or metric? I give you a choice between each one. And I also give you a choice to choose what color theme you want. So if you want to choose between different colors and so forth, you can kind of customize it to fit your style in that respect too.
Mike, I don't think that, apparently I haven't been using Seasonality Go, or at least not on the iPhone yet, and recognize all the power and all the features. I do have to ask, the wind speed with all the particles, is that something that's made possible by the current versions of the iOS and iPhone, or is that something that has been there for a while?
That one has been there for a while, but there's been some things have been able to change to get it to run faster on the more recent equipment. And so, I mean, it's all done in OpenGL. It's 3D, so forth. It uses the graphics hardware or in the later iPhones and iPads. But yeah, it's been possible to do it for a little while. I actually had that feature first on the Mac, and I was a little bit surprised when I put it on in Seasonality Go for the first time, and I saw, hey, this is actually running pretty quickly, and it can definitely handle this kind of simulation, because the simulation runs live. I mean, everything is it's not like a video is generated and showing you that. I mean, when you're scrolling around, places the particles and it animates them for you using the data from behind the scenes. So
it's a compelling view, and it really makes you, I think, understand a little more than just the bars and all, where things are coming from, how they're happening, and I'm sure someone with a more seasoned eye can appreciate the velocity with which things are happening and how that relates to what's going on in the real world. So a lot of depth there in that view.
yeah, it's been an area that I've always been interested in, is kind of taking complex data and making it easier to understand, and to make it easier to grasp what exactly is happening there. And you can definitely see, if you're looking at the data, if you're looking closely, you can see effects of terrain and so forth on it, or you can back up and just kind of enjoy the overall view of the large scale circulations.
When you were showing the sharing part, what is it that I would be sharing on Twitter or Facebook or whatever? Is it going to be my current weather conditions, or is it going to be the particular screen I'm looking at that moment?
So it will take a screenshot of that particular screen you're looking at, but it will also give you what the current temperature is and stuff for the location that you're at as well. And so it kind of takes both of those together. I had to find just the least amount of data that could actually fit into a tweet, with the 140 character limit. I kind of had to work with that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a nice touch. I'm not, because it is interesting how many people want to share something if they're in an extreme weather condition, or even if they're just in a really nice weather condition and want to upset the rest of us. Chris Breen, I'm talking to you, and you and your photos. But yeah, I think it's a nice touch, because there are too many weather apps that they give you a lot of information, but that's it, and they don't kind of encourage you to interact with the weather information, and that sounds maybe a little hokey, but I really do believe it, that if I have that ability to share it, because the weather is such an important thing, as we talked about earlier, that maybe more people will.
Yeah, it's a new feature that I added in this version, and I mean, from the standpoint as if there's interesting weather happening, or if even if you're in the situation where you're getting together with some friends, and want to share, just send them a quick message saying, "Hey, this is what the weather's going to be like this afternoon when we're getting together and doing something." And so I thought that was kind of a nice feature to add and include in the latest version.
Definitely. I think we talked about this before when you and I first met, but for the folks that didn't see that or would like to be updated, where do you get all this information? And especially the global wind patterns, I think is fascinating. I know you don't have a string of your own satellites up, so where are you pulling all this from?
Well, I do run my own weather servers here, and I have a couple of different ones. One's here in Michigan, the other one is in Wisconsin, actually. But I get most of the data from the National Weather Service. They place out a lot of the data that is most applicable in an app like this, and they make it easy to access. And it's kind of one of the ways that our government is actually working for us. It's just kind of a nice change sometimes. But ignoring that, for the wind simulation, I will grab the latest model data, and there's a model called the GFS that runs globally, and that I can grab the wind pattern that's actually modeled for the nearest time period to right now, and then I can actually run the simulation locally. So that's where that particular data comes from. The forecast, again, from the National Weather Service. Past data comes from them as well. Internationally, I actually will take one of the forecast models internationally and create my own forecasts on the servers that I run. And so that part is done on my end. Some other countries, such as like Canada and Australia, they offer their radar data, and so I'll grab that and we'll integrate that with the maps as well. So I kind of pull data from a lot of different sources and kind of aggregate it for you before presenting it in the form of a Seasonality Go.
Mike, I have to take you back to the beginning of that answer. when you say you run your own weather servers, that probably makes perfect sense to you, but I have no idea what that means. Are we talking about like a little weather station to collect data, or is there? I'm sure it's a little more involved than that.
It's actually there. I have there's servers that actually will like compile some of the data together. For instance, one of them is actually a Mac Mini set up as a server, and it actually will. That's the one that will pull radar images and satellite images from all over, and it pulls the data from satellites and raw radar imagery, and then it composites them into an image that it could overlay on a map that looks like it should look, right, like you would expect it to look. And so, I mean, this is something that I have a couple of different servers that I've been running for quite some time. They take care of each other. If one goes offline, the other one picks up where it left off, kind of thing. And so I've been it's given me more flexibility than just the standard data that's available, because I can, if there's things that are too computing intensive to run on something like an iPad, I can do more of that on the server side. Before, and then so when Seasonality Go gets connected, it can say, okay, just give me what you've processed here.
So, and any weather app obviously is connecting to something somewhere. When I fire up Seasonality Go, I'm connecting to your weather server, and it's sending the information that the program needs.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it will. Some things are gathered from my servers, and then other things are grabbed directly from the National Weather Service. For instance, the model data for the particle mode, that actually it will go and connect to a server directly at the National Weather Service to download that data. And so anything that I can create that is hosted in other places that are reliable, I keep those data sources there so that it's more reliable in my app. Anything that I find not to be reliable, or if there's multiple sources that I want to make sure are continue to be available for my customers, those are things that I'm like, okay, I've run these servers for a while. I can pull those in and give high availability so that they'll be there and make the data available for customers.
It's very cool. It's very cool. So this is a weather app for, I think, weather geeks as well as those with maybe more than just a passing interest in the temperature and the forecast for the next week. This really lets you understand maybe a little bit about where your weather's coming from and how and why. And the deeper you dig into this, it seems like the more there is to satisfy your curiosity.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing, is that I've always been kind of about getting more in depth with the data than the typical weather app. I mean, the iPhone comes. I mean, Apple has their weather app. That will show you what it's going to be like today and give you a quick forecast. But if you want to dive deeper and look at more of the data in the graphs or satellite imagery and so forth, that's where Seasonality Go comes into play. It really does provide that extra data for you.
I'm sitting here thinking, and of course watching the demo and working with it myself, and thinking, gee, in a way I'm surprised maybe that some TV newscasters have not adopted your format and even the program as a way to display and help people understand weather. I'd also think that from an education standpoint with kids, this would be phenomenal. And if you're one of those schools out there that does a local TV news program like so many do, I think your weather person should take a look at this because it'll blow the rest of the kids away.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and education's always been an area that I've been kind of passionate about, and it's I've heard from people who do use it in the classroom, or Seasonality Core for the Mac. This is the Mac version of my weather app, and they use that in the classroom to kind of teach kids what's happening. Why? Because you can use the particles, will show you the wind fields and stuff, but that kind of also relates to the fronts and so forth, and so it makes it easier to see, like, hey, this is what's happening when a cold front comes through, and kind of see that firsthand.
Yeah. And there's nothing like seeing it, and especially, like you say, the particle mode, it's live, and that, or, it's in motion, and it helps you understand things that happen maybe over a period of a few hours. In a few seconds, the cause and effect become very clear.
Right,
So,
right.
so this is 3.0. What kind of pricing are we talking about?
It's available now for $5.99, and that's on both. It's a universal version, so it'll work both on your iPhone and your iPad. You don't have to pay twice or anything like that. And so, yeah, I went for as much as I can include for that price point. And yeah, updates are free for a long time. So
iOS 8 required?
iOS 8 is required. Yeah, I had to use some of the later software libraries in there in order to support both the iPhone and the iPad with what I was wanting to do with it. And so it requires iOS 8, and that runs pretty much on most iPads after the iPad 2 and the iPad Mini and later. So, I believe the iPhone 4S is required. Anything later, iPhone 4S or later, will work on iOS 8. So.
Mike, it's a very cool product. My enthusiasm about it is genuine, just because we all do deal with the weather, and once in a while I do get curious, and it's just a fun app to play with. You know, if you have a few minutes and you're stuck somewhere between appointments, you know, you start to look at it and think, oh, that's why that happens, or you know, there's this new feature or new view or new map that I haven't seen before. So it'll provide quite a bit of entertainment and information.
Right. Well, that's the goal. I love using it myself. I mean, and that's one thing that makes it easier to keep developing it after all these years. Is something that I use every day too. So,
of course, it's available in the App Store. What's your website?
It is also available at the website is getseasonality.com, and I'm also on Twitter at getseasonality.
Great. Well, hopefully we can steer some folks your way, get them a little more interested, because they really should be. And I hope it's not quite this long again until Seasonality Go 4 comes out. Or shouldn't I even say that at this point?
I'll get right on it.
Yeah, because you had nothing else to do.
Right.
Hey, Mike, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for checking in, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks again for having me.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. Go get Seasonality Go. I really think that you're going to enjoy it. I think it's going to, all your other weather apps are going to take a back seat to it. Please follow me on Twitter. I'll have links in the show notes, of course, to Mike and his website and everything. And check out the new MacVoices magazine on Flipboard. Trying to flip different things in there that will help you get more out of your Apple tech. Until the next time, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for links, show notes, to subscribe, to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and the MacVoices blog. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter, the MacVoices Dispatch, to stay up to date on all the latest MacVoices news from our front page or at macvoices.com/newsletter. Do more with your Apple tech by subscribing to the free MacVoices magazine on Flipboard by visiting macvoices.com/magazine. Advertising and sponsorships handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.